Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about supporting customer information and education needs. We're going to talk about patient portals. This is how we're currently doing a lot of this kind of work. This is a quote from Michelle Ronan Notebloom, who writes for the Healthcare IT News. And this is what she says about patient engagement. My view is that patient portals are the plumbing in the patient engagement process. Clinical data is the water that flows through the plumbing. If I am thirsty, the presence of plumbing is not enough to quench my thirst. I still need a continuous flow of water, and it's also helpful to have a good plumber around to provide professional guidance when needed. Part of the meaningful use initiative was for organizations, provider offices, hospitals to establish a patient portal. And many patient portals got established, but some of them were fairly primitive and not really enriched with information. There was sort of a reluctancy to add any information without having the provider be able to control some of that. And so some of the patient portals weren't very robust. But since then, it's come a long way. I do want to back up and just talk about personal health records before we go much further with portals. Personal health records, back in 2008 and 2007, Google Health had one, and Microsoft Health Vault was a very popular one. And these were free, and you could subscribe to them and actually add information. I personally had a Microsoft Health Vault account, which I have to tell you Microsoft has shut down their Microsoft Health Vault this spring. And I think part of it was these were in place way before a really good portal was put into place, and you could add all sorts of information. You could add you had have to enter it, for the most part, information about, going to a provider visit, any devices. There were programs through the AHA and the American Diabetes Association. There were all sorts of really nice things that were on there if you wanted to spend a lot of time. But it did take a lot of time to do that. You had to remember to enter everything. Now, I do know that the Cleveland Clinic had an option that you could opt in to have all your visits go to the Microsoft Health Vault. So that was very, very useful. But both of these have since gone to the wayside. I think I heard Bill Gates speak many years ago about he couldn't understand why we didn't have a single patient record and that you couldn't access everything from one spot. And this was his solution. But since the patient portals were part of meaningful use, like I said before, now we're seeing more patient portals. So here are some patient portals. I know that originally I had worked in a 9-clinic setting, and we didn't feel comfortable having the patients make an appointment through the portal. We didn't feel comfortable putting labs out there without a visit. And it was kind of, limiting. We did take messages, like secure messages from our portal. They went directly into the medical record, which posed some problems because there wasn't a word limit. So some of them were quite long, and then if somebody was negative and complaining, that went into their records. So, it takes a lot of thought to figure these out. Now, these happen to be 4 patient portals that I belong to personally, and I think there might even be one more. But this is now kind of the issue. So if I get my care at 4 different organizations, there is not a single place where all my information is. So that makes it a little difficult. Now, I could add some information, but, who has the time to do that? the My Chart, the My EMHS Health, and the My Health one on the bottom, those are all generated. Those are Epic driven ones, so they look kind of more similar, and they act very much the same. I do like the fact that the bottom right hand corner is a Spectrum Health out of Michigan, and they just post labs. You know, you just go right in there and look at all your labs. You don't need to have a doctor tell you what they are. They are pretty well explained. It's kind of nice. These are very valuable. People can you know, do things themselves, look up stuff where they might have called someone before. Now, I do think it may be a challenge for the non-technical people, which tend to be some of our older people. But as I travel towards that being an older American, you know, they're pretty easy to use. But there are, you know, still a number of people who are not tech savvy, don't have the resources. But keep that in mind. You know, when you're getting your care, almost everybody has a patient portal now. All right, and I wanted to say one other thing about patient engagement. There was this year-long multi-centered open notes study, and what they did is I think they had two different provider organizations, and their program was that the provider sat side by side with that patient and entered the information into their EHR. And you'd sit down and, you know, you'd engage with them, and it was really quite successful. And I think one of them was in Boston, and there were some providers who really, you know, didn't like it, but many of them did like it. And I've included a video on a patient that really liked it a lot. But these patients who got to read their notes felt more in charge of their, you know, their care. They could recall their care plan. They had a better understanding. They took better care of themselves. They were more engaged. And, you know, that's really the key for many people's success. A lot of people are not engaged in their health care. They just want somebody to give them a pill and make it better, or they don't understand and they're too afraid to ask, or, you know, they have limited language or you know, ability to understand. So this is a really great program. It has now spread. It is not a study. It is now out there. And when they went in the study, when they went to remove it from the docs that didn't want to use it in the first place, they wouldn't let them. They kind of liked it. Some of them started using it. Many large practices are using it. Kaiser Permanente has adopted this methodology. So, you know, we need to get beyond, you know, the notion that the provider knows everything and has to control all the information, and getting more into we need to be partners with the patients in order to engage them. Well, that's all I have for you on that subject. Thank you.